Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about holiday stuff, specifically Advent calendars and what we might want to know about Advent calendars, about the history. Now, of course, because we're in the middle of December as this is going on, this is not going to be a gifting buying guide, and it's not going to be a critical rating or review of any Advent calendars because I don't have one, but we're specifically going to be talking about chocolate-themed Advent calendars, and we're going to be taking a look at the article that appeared in Food and Wine magazine that inspired me to do this episode today, and we're also going to be taking a look at another article about another recommendation for Advent calendars. Again, chocolate-themed Advent calendars, because you're here on The Chocolate Life. And before we begin, I would like to remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. And here is the homepage of The Chocolate Life right now. You can go there and you can click on the join button. If you're not already a member, there is always a free membership tier, but there are also premium membership tiers starting at $5 a month. The higher tiers include consulting and other kinds of benefits, but you can support not only Pod Save Chocolate, but The Chocolate Life by going to the homepage of Chocolate Life or any page of The Chocolate Life and clicking join. Now, for every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I put together a post, and here is the post for today's episode. Here's the post for today's episode, and for every episode, I do create a post. And it is a run of show. We're going to go and you can follow along afterwards. This is something relatively new, which is that there's a QR code. And so if you're looking at this, listening to this on a computer, you can go and click on the QR code with your phone, and you can go follow along using this, using the post. As we go along. So this is here, so you can refer to it at any time afterwards without having to worry about being able to see what the URLs are for the posts and things like that. They're always here. And if there's something that's brought up during the course of the episode, I will put it into the show notes in the post here as well. And then finally, no matter where you are in the world that you might be tuning in, let me know in the comments or the live chat on YouTube, the comments on LinkedIn or Facebook. Let me know where in the world you're connecting from. I'll get that shout out up on screen. And you can also ask a question or make a comment as well. So with all that out of the way, let's go and begin, dive into today's topic, which is Advent calendars. Now, the history of the Advent calendar actually is relatively recent. As you can see here, I have done a little bit of research into the history of Advent calendars. They are less than 200 years old as a regular basis. So Advent calendars trace back to German Protestant practices in the 1800s. I saw 1880s, but 1800s, where families mark the days leading up to Christmas by chalking lines on doors, lighting candles, or hanging a daily devotional picture. So it's maybe a little over 200 years old, around 200 years old, this practice. By the 1830s into the 1880s, handmade countdown boards. So the notion of there was a deliberate on the first day of December, we've got this on the second day of December. We're going to count up rather than count down, count up to Christmas Day. These countdown boards and wreaths appeared along the rise of Advent as a domestic devotional season. So apparently the notion of Advent as a season that you would actively observe is a relatively modern phenomenon. So the first Advent calendars emerged soon after the turn of the 20th century, with German printer and publisher Gerhard Lang, known for popularizing them beginning in 1908. Lang added small doors, and in the 1920s, chocolate, an innovation that helped transform a religious household ritual into a widely adopted seasonal product. So we see that sometime in the 1920s, so this is post-World War II, before the start of the Great Depression in 1929, is when we started seeing what we think of as modern Advent calendars with small bits of chocolate behind the doors that you could open up. Production halted during World War II. Lots of things halted during World War II, but then resumed in the 1950s. And we're going to go take a look at Advent calendars that were available for purchase in 2025 for the holiday season. And again, this was inspired by an article in Food and Wine magazine. And we're going to talk a little bit, not just about the Advent calendars themselves, but the editorial process, because I think it's also very important. But first thing I want to point out is what's in a number. So the article is our favorite chocolate Advent calendars sell out yearly. Here are 21 to grab now. And that number 21 is the inspiration behind the title of this. What's behind door number 24? And this is door number 24 hidden behind the chocolate here, as it turns out, coincidentally, right? But the question is, why 21? Why 21? If you're going to do an Advent calendar, why don't you do 24 or 25? And one of the reasons I suspect that this might be the case is that every single recommendation, the editors fit into a topic. So one of them is, so this is in order of presentation in the article when we get there, but best splurge, most artistic, most innovative design, best illustrated, best value, best assorted chocolate. You get the idea. You can read these, but there's a list of them. And my point is, if you got all the way to 21, why couldn't you do 4 more? Why are we doing only 21? So that was the sort of conceit that came to mind for this post. And the question is, do you have ideas for 4 more categories? Do you have other recommendations that you'd like to see when it comes to Advent calendars for the year? Perhaps it's one you purchased and gifted. Perhaps it's one that was gifted to you. What are your thoughts about Advent calendars? Do you like them? If you have family member, for example, small children, do they like them? How do you share them in your family? I know that as I was growing up, we had one calendar and it had drawers in it, and we put things in the drawers, but most of the things that were in the drawers were sort of family heirloom kind of things. And so there was no sharing. 1 or 2 drawers might have chocolate in them. And then the question is, if there was one chocolate in a drawer and it needed to be shared among 4 children, how do you go about sharing a Hershey's Kiss, for example, because that was about what would fit into a drawer. How do you go about sharing it? So there are all sorts of logistical challenges associated with Advent calendars. But what are some of the traditions in your household when it came to Advent calendars? Did you have one? Did you have more than one? Did every child have their own? This is obviously a Christmas-centric holiday that's not related to other traditions that happen, holiday traditions that happened at this time of year. So, but what did you do? Did you have a specific calendar that you thought was cool, right? But what we've got here is a bunch of interesting categories. So if like the best chocolate Advent calendar for sharing. So the best milk chocolate Advent calendar for gifting, right? Most classic, best. So I suspect that the reason that they only got to 21 is that categories became very, very finely diced and spliced and sliced. And it became more challenging to find meaningful differentiations in the categorization system. Right. But then let's go think about who the Food and Wine audience is, because this is an article that appeared in Food and Wine magazine in November. We'll open up the article in just a second, but in November. So let's take a look at who Food and Wine is, some audience notes. So Food and Wine reaches affluent, educated, food-obsessed adults who cook, dine out, travel, and drink wine. So what do we know about them? So I asked about psychographics and demographics, and there were 2 places where I got this. So number one is I asked an AI, a large language model, to go and search for things, and so it gave me this information. And then I actually went and downloaded the media kit. So this will tell me what the prices of advertising are. So if I wanted to buy a full page, black and white or color, what the prices are. And then it will tell me about who the audience is. And so here's what Food and Wine magazine on the right here, what says about their audience. And there's a sort of a high level précis of it. So the average HHI, household income, so the average household income of a subscriber, so this is somebody who actually gets a physical copy of the magazine. How many of them are there? There are approximately 940,000 subscribers. So people who pay money each month to have a physical copy delivered to them. When we look at the entire audience, we have a combination of people who look at digital versions of it online, as we're doing now. We have people who follow them on social media, right? And then there's this notion of affluent audience. So of all of the people, of all of the circulation and social media and digital, there's going to be some overlap. So we just can't add them together. So some of the people who get the physical copies also follow them on social media. So we just can't add these numbers together. But of this entire audience, which is roughly 25 million people, approximately 10 million, 9.6 million of them are considered to be affluent. And what does that mean? And so the average HHI stands for household income, is $382,536. So if you're a subscriber, the average subscriber to Food and Wine magazine makes over $350,000 a year. The average age of a subscriber, mid-40s. Of the audience, the total audience here, approximately 6 million of them are considered to be millionaires. So these are not only high household incomes, but they're affluent, right? They have a bunch of money. They're considered to be millionaires. The skew is mostly male, so 50% male to 43% female in terms of readership. And readership, when it comes to magazine, is you have the people who subscribe and then pass along. So, for example, I might be the male subscriber, but I pass it along to my wife. And to some extent, that might count as 2 views, even though there's only 1 physical copy. And maybe you share it with a neighbor or you've got guests over, right? And so they pick up the magazine and they read through it. But the skew, this is probably subscriber skew, is 57 to 43%. Interestingly enough, 93% of subscribers are homeowners, right? Rather than people who rent. That's an interesting thing, that if I am a renter, I am not a subscriber to Food and Wine magazine. But just an interesting aside, and that's one of the reasons why it's fun reading media kits to figure out what the readership is. And 77% of these subscribers, right, only serve the best food and beverages when entertaining friends and family. And then furthermore, they're considered to be quality seeking. There's a preference for premium ingredients, small producers, and quote unquote worth it dining over bargain hunting, right? And they respond to what they consider to be editorial authority and trusted curation. And this is the position of Food and Wine magazine when it comes to these kinds of articles. That what we've got an audience that responds to editorial authority and trusted curation. And Food and Wine, when they put together these kinds of lists, put themselves in that position. So with that said, let's go take a look at the article. So this is the article. It was published on November 17th, 2025. Time to pre-order your advent calendars. So the 21 best chocolate advent calendars of 2025. What I want to do is, before we go into them, it's always makes sense. So this is one way to think about, how am I going to go about making sense of the article, is to go take a look at who the authors are. And in this particular case, it's under our expertise. And again, leaning in to this idea of editorial authority and curation, it makes sense to present the expertise of the authors who are involved in this. So one is a woman by the name of Rochelle Blow. I am assuming woman by the name. Excuse me if I'm making a presumption here. So Rochelle is a food writer and editor with a decade of professional experience. She was previously a senior associate editor and social media manager at both Bon Appetit and Cooking Light magazines. She's also a novelist, a culinary school graduate, and a former professional baker and line cook who has written extensively about home and kitchen products in the luxury space, right? And in the context of putting together this article, she consulted with other Food and Wine editors who chose offerings from beloved chocolate makers from across the globe at a variety of price points. And so there was a sense that, okay, perhaps the initial outreach was to food and wine editors who made recommendations. And it was from those recommendations by food and wine editors that the bulk of the offerings were made. I'm not entirely sure that's the case, but that seems to be a reasonable conclusion. And then we have Dylan Evans, who is an update writer at Food and Wine Magazine. Okay. So he's freelance, probably not staff, but he may be staff. A chocolate fanatic who has reviewed dozens of chocolate products, including baking chocolate and American-made chocolate bars, and many of the chocolate advent calendars in this roundup. So he has reviewed many of the advent calendars and updating this article for 25. Dylan also consulted the editors for their insights and recommendations. So there is this back and forth consultation between editors of the magazine and the people who are authoring the book. But because, I'm a curious kind of person, what I want to do is I want to go and take a look and go, hey, we've got this guy who wrote an article on the best chocolate bars. And so what I want to do is I want to, it says the best chocolate in the country, but let me see if, interestingly, this opened in another incognito window here, so I'm still getting links. So this says American-made chocolate bars, right? And so what I want to do is I want to go take a look, and it says the best chocolate in the country, according to our editors. And these are these chocolate bars? And so I don't know the answer to that. Well, I do know the answer to that question. It's about a year old. And what we do is we find the best chocolate picks. So whatever you're on the hunt for best chocolate bars, we're looking for a sweet gift. So this is where we find an editorial mismatch. The previous point said, oh, we're looking at chocolate bars, and there's more than bars here. But we've got Compartes, Vosges, and Sons. Interesting out of the box sort of thinking there. Dandelion, Vosges, C's, France. Why am I doing this? Because we'll find that there's an overlap between these makers on this list and other lists. But interestingly, Valrhona and Blue Stripes Cacao. So it's an interesting list. This is the best chocolate in the country, according to the editors. And I'm looking at going, the best chocolate in the country. This is an interesting selection. So Valrhona Dulce, Seattle Chocolates, Truffles. So it's a mix and match. France Chocolate Smoked Sea Salt Caramels, which actually are pretty damn good. Vosges, Barcelona Mini Milk Chocolate Bar. It's an interesting selection of things. But what we've got is we've got an understanding of another article about chocolate, which is contributed to by one of the editors. And we can start seeing if there are some patterns in the recommendations, some overlaps or things like that. So that's why it makes sense to go follow things. So number one, the best splurge chocolate advent calendar is from Vosges. Their calendar of advent. Now, I would love to be able to show you what these things are, but for some reason, the site is down or I can't reach the URL for one reason or another. So, and there's no price point. Every day features an original confection, no repeats. I certainly hope so. And fans of high-end chocolate, it's impressive, says Food and Wine editor Danielle St. Pierre. All right, so this begins to talk to best splurge. So if I'm a reader of Food and Wine magazine, I've got a household income of $350,000, net worth of, or I'm considered to be a millionaire. I'm looking for editorial authority and curation, and I want, quote unquote, the best. And I'm looking to do something that will be impressive. Then this is the number one selection. Is it the best? It's the best splurge, but it's position number one. And I don't know in what order, what the editorial decision was in terms of ordering. So it's not alphabetical. That's all I know. So here we have Vosges, but Vosges, remember, was mentioned twice on Dylan's previous list of the best chocolate, quote unquote, bars in America, best chocolates in America. So then we have the most artistic. So we have this from Cacao and Cardamom. I'm kind of wondering if this gets bigger. Nope, it's just a link through to it. It's sold out. It was $155. What I think that's going to mean is that the Vosges was more expensive than $155. Otherwise, it might have been. But the most artistic. So this is Cacao and Cardamom, a very, very interesting maker. I'm familiar with their work, but in this particular case, it's not about the chocolate. It talks about it does say that each chocolate is Insta-ready. There's no editorial, so we don't have an editor of Food and Wine weighing in on what's going on. Not entirely sure why the inconsistency here. This year's selection includes flavors like peppermint mocha, cherry cordial, fig and wine, and new flavors exclusive to the Advent calendar. But am I purchasing this because it's great chocolate? Am I purchasing it because of the way it looks? Could be one, could be the other, but we have most artistic. So is this most artistic pieces or is it most artistic boxes? And don't know the answer to the question, but this is immediately followed by most innovative chocolate Advent calendar design. So here we have a 2025 Advent calendar. It looks like it might be Maya inspired. I'm not entirely sure. There's no editorialization. Oh, the Advent calendar is inspired by the Place Charles de Gaulle in Paris. 2 rings and a cylinder, each interlocked and rotating on a single rod. That sounds pretty cool in terms of the presentation. It is spectacularly beautiful in taking a look at it. The boxes are interesting. 24 is in the center. For some reason, this picture is not a link to take me to the website where it was with Cacao and Cardamom. And is it visible on La Maison de Chocolat? It is. The Triomphe Advent calendar is out of stock, and so they've taken the price down for it. I mean, it is really quite spectacular when you think about it. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's going to go, ooh, wow, but who is it for? I mean, the La Maison de Chocolat, I mean, my experience with the products is it's better in Paris than it is in New York City, which is where I've had it. I've had it in both places. But what is this? What is this here for? And how does it stay put? I mean, how do you articulate it? I mean, it makes sense, but if you don't have it flat and you don't have, is it flat on a surface or is it standing up? Maybe it's on a mantelpiece or something like that. It seems like, it's great in theory, but unless there is a stand for it, maybe not so interesting. So best illustrated chocolate calendar. So we have a design calendar. We have a artistic, we have a design, I think probably the box, and then we have illustrated calendar. So 3 overlapping, none of these having to do with the actual quality of what's inside. Although I would have to say that, Compartes, which is in LA, is known for the work they do. They're considered to be a high-end chocolatier confectioner, and it is a beautiful product. It was $120. It's based on the Nutcracker. I mean, it's a spectacular calendar. And my guess is, I mean, if you're an adult who really, really loves the Nutcracker Ballet, or you're a young child who loves the Nutcracker, I could imagine this being perfect for a 9 or 10-year-old girl who goes to ballet school. Again, we're talking about families with household incomes of $350,000. So $120 Advent calendar makes an enormous amount of sense. Most of the product cost is in the box, not in the chocolate, because I think if I were to go to Compartes and say, buy me a 24-piece box of chocolate, you get an idea about what the cost of the chocolate is. There are 2 designs, right? And the editor says, Food and Wine writer Liv Dansky. I had a lot of fun opening the calendar. In the interest of total honesty, I finished the calendar in a matter of days. I would 100 recommend to any chocolate lovers in the life. And again, I'm sort of curious about why there's an editorial mention here and not for La Maison de Chocolat and not for cacao and cardamom. But so there's, again, a little bit of editorial inconsistency there. But all of these sort of fit in so far with the theme, not with the theme, but with the audience demographics and psychographics of Food and Wine magazine. Very high end, serve only the best, and are looking for curated experiences based on editorial authority. And this is where I kind of wonder what the heck is going on. Am I going to Food and Wine magazine for the Lindt Teddy Bear Advent Calendar, which sells for between $13 and $18, either on Amazon or at Target or at the World Market? Right? They claim it's one of the best options for gifting to a child, but again, here the audience is people with incomes of $350,000 a year and spending $13. Yay, teddy bears and all that kind of stuff. It's also quite interesting. And is Lindt chocolate the best? Right? This is where I think that the editorial categorization doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Right? That what we've got here is we've got a recommendation for something which doesn't appear to fit the audience demographics and psychographics of the magazine. So maybe this is for people who only see the magazine online, or they're searching for advent calendars in a search engine and they run across this. And so these are for people who don't meet the criteria for what it means to be a Food and Wine subscriber. Maybe, but I am not convinced that this is. Is it the best for a small child? Maybe. Okay. Again, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Each day features a classic treat, including Lindor milk chocolate balls, hazelnut cream balls, and solid milk chocolate bears. And so the price is in line with what it is that you can go into a Lindt store and get a bag of Lindor balls. So it makes sense. Best assorted chocolate advent calendar from Charbonella Walker, chocolate and truffles. Not cheap, $160 Sur La Table. Also available at Williams Sonoma and Macy's. They're an historic British chocolatier. Queen Elizabeth II loved them especially. Their rose creams. It's a decorative case of hidden chocolates in a confectionery shop. And there's no editorial mention of why it is that they've taken it. There's no discussion of why this is recommended. It's the best assorted. So assorted chocolate. So this is a mixture of milk chocolate and dark chocolate. They're flavored truffles. But if we look at some of the other advent calendars, I'm just curious as to how the editorial decisions were made. It seems to me they have a collection of categories and they need to fit something into a category. So there. Best chocolate advent calendar for sharing, the Neuhaus sharing advent calendar. So Neuhaus has been around since the 1850s. The gift box unfolds into a street scene of chocolate shop windows. Inside, there are 78. So they're 24 times 3. No, there's more than that. So 78 divided by 24, 3 is 82. 24 times 3. Anyway, it's not 24 times 3 is 68, right? No, 72. 24 times 3 is 70. Excuse me, I'm just discombobulated. So why 78? So the answer to the question is one of the reasons why this might be the best chocolate advent calendar for sharing is that when you open up a box, when you open up a day, there is more than one thing inside. And that's what makes it useful for sharing. I think this is a great idea. Now, I mean, Neuhaus chocolates, they are industrial. They are considered to be one of, quote unquote, Belgium's finest, but they are an industrial chocolate maker. These things are made on very long lines, very big automated lines that I would need to go take a look at what the ingredients list are, but I would not put them on the same plane, for example, as Compartes and other things when it comes to an ingredient selection. These things are going to be made in Europe. I mean, for some reason, I'm not in the UK. Food and Wine is an American magazine. Don't know why I'd want to have a link to buying this on Selfridges. The best chocolate advent calendar for caramel and butterscotch. So C's 2025 advent calendar. Let's find out how much it was. Oh, nope. Right, not available. It looks like, so number one, to see the skim resources here, that probably means that it is an affiliate link. So they're making money if you purchase it. There are different links to different places, and they may have to do with affiliate links. So we don't know how much this is. What I would do is I would say that C's fits into this hometown favorite category, which I think is really, really important to recognize. That I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Southern California in the 1960s, and we had a tradition of buying C's Victoria's English Toffee for my mother for the Christmas holiday season. That's because she was born in the Los Angeles area, and when she was a child, this was her favorite chocolate. And so we continued that as an adult. So I can imagine that if I'm looking for caramel and butterscotch, I mean, look, it opens it up. It's adorable. I can't actually, well, let me see if I can blow it up. I mean, it's adorable. I mean, it's got the black and white floor of a C's shop. So it's got that going for it. It's got some little things inside. It's got a little C's box over here. All of the branding is related to C's as a company. It has different size boxes and different shape boxes. I mean, this is a lot of fun, right? It looks like it's got, oh, the lollipop. If anybody's had one of their butterscotch pops, they're pretty good. Peanut butter is my favorite. It's really, really cool. I mean, this is pure nostalgia, right? And I can imagine that if C's was a part of my childhood, that I would really love this. And I would recommend it from that point of view. I don't care that it's caramel and butterscotch per se. I mean, there's some chocolate associated with it, but it's pretty cool, right? If you take a look at this, this is a real thick chocolate shell. We're not talking about gourmet chocolate when we're doing this. We're talking about nostalgia, hometown favorite. This reminds me of my childhood, and what I want to do is continue with, right, continue the tradition with a family. It makes enormous sense. Chocolate covered marshmallow treats. Well, marshmallow treats is neither caramel or butterscotch, so okay, right? So it seems like it's not 100% caramel and chocolate, or caramel and butterscotch. So most classic chocolate advent calendar, a chocolate snow globe advent calendar. So this is probably not actually three-dimensional. It's flat and it opens up. It's just, I've got a graphic design that looks like so here it is on Amazon. That is the case. I open it up and I've got boxes and, right, it's $45 on Amazon. But it is a classic calendar. What's really important to know that if you are in the United States, $37, now 45. If you are in the United States and many places in the world, the chocolate, the products that are put into this calendar are made in Pennsylvania. The chocolate itself is an industrial chocolate manufactured by a company that is with a factory in Belgium, right? So there is that connection to the history of Belgium, although the owner of Godiva is a Turkish-based candy conglomerate. So it's a classic. If I go take a look at the pieces that are inside of it, let's go take a look at the pieces inside of it. I mean, these are real, real classic. I mean, if you are a fan of Godiva chocolate, I'm not, but if you are a fan of Godiva chocolate, these are very, very classic pieces, and it will be, a nostalgia-filled experience. But it's most classic, the best if I'm looking for classicist. The Godiva brand, along with the No House brand, two of the oldest brands that are on this list, although Godiva is from the early 20th century, 1906, 1908, 1910, or thereabouts, as opposed to No House, which is in the 1850s, as I recall. But classic. And who doesn't love penguins? I love penguins, and there are a couple of penguins here. So pretty cool. Might be something for a small child. Again, sharing is a thing. These are not great. This is not necessarily a great calendar for sharing. So anyway, best attention to detail. So Dandelion, and what they do is they do talk a little bit about Dandelion being a single source, small batch chocolatier, which is important. But there are, so Dandelion took no shortage of care when sourcing the treats. 25 chocolatiers across North America contributed a wide assortment of confectionery. So 25 chocolatiers across North America submitted 25 pieces. Not entirely, but it's interesting. So that what Dandelion did is they curated, right, a number of different makers. It doesn't say who they are, but it's also very cool in the sense that the theme, each chocolate is a surprise. Let's see, it has to do, the packaging depicts a starry outer space background overlaid with illustrations. So these are solar system themes. The 25 ornament boxes inside represent 25 of our solar system's moons. So interesting theme. It's, it looks insanely beautiful. You can see the decorations and things on the products that are inside. It's just amazing. They sold out. You can pre-order for next year. No information on what the pricing was, but incredibly, incredibly beautiful. It's a great thing. And Dandelion is at least a craft chocolate maker, in the sense that they are. So although I don't know if there is, the reason why they chose all these 25 chocolate makers is because they also produce couverture, or all of the 25 chocolatiers or all of the chocolatiers who are contributing to using their couverture. That would be an interesting thing to find out. Best milk chocolate advent calendar for gifting. And this is where we start, a really splitting hairs, I think. Again, still more. Best milk chocolate advent calendar for gifting. So I'm looking for something I want to give someone. I don't want to, it's half price. It was $25. I don't know if this is because it's after the year. There are 24 milk chocolates. So Harry and David, again, is, although they're located in Oregon, I believe they're associated with a bunch of other brands, including other chocolate brands. I think Harry and David may have purchased either Dagoba. I think they may have purchased, there is some connection there. Dagoba was founded in that part of Oregon. Please, I'm riffing from memory here. But here we have, this isn't the most exciting advent calendar because each door offers the same solid milk chocolate. Again, when I look at who the audience is for Food and Wine magazine, this is the best experience. Why would I recommend something which is not exciting? It's cute, relatively affordable, right? Don't pass up on this chocolate calendar. However, I don't necessarily know that I would. I mean, I would keep in mind, maybe I'm gifting it to one of my friends who doesn't read Food and Wine magazine and doesn't have $350,000 annual income and a millionaire to give it to. I don't understand. Best peppermint bark advent calendar, Williams Sonoma. Yeah, do I want 24 pieces of the same flavor chocolate? They're Santa shaped. Oh, this is cool. I mean, they're interesting molds, but Williams Sonoma is not manufacturing these things. So this is a private label deal. They're using industrial chocolate. And this is one of the places where I think that this whole list falls apart, is that they're not focused enough, I think, on the quality of the chocolate and the ingredients of the actual things inside the calendar. Right? They're focusing on other aspects of it. Best milk chocolate calendar for variety. So it's not the best milk chocolate calendar for sharing, which is unfortunately not very exciting because it is the same thing. The best milk chocolate variety for Cadbury Dairy Milk. So why is it variety? So we've Captivated, which features mini chunk, bobbin, and bell versions. Oh, so this might be all Cadbury Dairy Milk, and what's happening is each piece is a different flavor, even though it's all the same chocolate. So variety of shapes, not variety of chocolates. Most conscientious chocolate advent calendar, Tony Chocolonely countdown calendar, $50. Let's see, 6 different types of bars. So it's 4 each of 6 different flavor. They're all milk. People know my feelings about Tony. I think they are disingenuous in the way that they represent the work that they do on the ground. Is it the most conscientious in the world? Maybe not. Is it probably the most conscientious on this list? I would probably agree with that, right? Best traditional. So Vermont Christmas Company, Christmas Market, Chocolate Advent Calendar. So best traditional has to do with the artwork, all right, not the chocolate. It's $8. Again, my HHI is $350,000. I'm a millionaire. All right, I want premium products. Am I going to Walmart to buy my advent calendar or Amazon online? Probably not. You won't find an assortment of confections and candies here. Every one of the 24 days reveals a molded gourmet milk chocolate treat. No, at $8 for 24 pieces, you're not finding gourmet chocolate. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Vermont Christmas Company, don't know who they are, but never heard of them. So the Hotel Chocolat Everything Advent Calendar, for people who don't know, Hotel Chocolat was recently purchased by Mars, and you may have questions about whether or not you want to do business with Mars. They are known for their hot chocolate blends and the Velvetizer. They used to have retail locations in the US. I don't think they do anymore. I know the New York location has closed. If you look at these very, very closely, what you'll do is you'll find all of these things are machine made. They're all made on a one-shot machine. So they may hand decorated on the top. These are all machine made. And they, so right? Everything. Hotel Chocolat, the everything advent calendar. Why is it called the everything? Will lead you through a selection of creative truffles, carrot cake, lemon cheesecake, fudge sundae. So it's called everything because maybe every single flavor is different. So we have a chocolate-covered licorice advent calendar, so lakritz, so it's Scandinavian for licorice, by Bülow, who is known as a superior licorice provider in Scandinavia. You can buy it on the US website. If you are a huge Scandinavian licorice fan, or you know somebody who is a big Scandinavian licorice fan, as they say, it isn't your ordinary chocolate advent calendar. It's got a bunch of interesting flavors, crispy caramel, passion fruit. There's probably a salted licorice in there. And it's for sharing, 48 pieces, like 2 per each day, right? If you're a huge licorice fan, this sounds like an interesting opportunity, and it's in this unusual shape, which I've run across. It's not plain licorice in strips as we think. Most historical, Bissinger's. Again, I think that historical refers to, there's a big B in the middle of the Palace of Versailles, right? So it's historic because of the packaging, the drawing that's on the front. Best calendar with candy, Dylan's Candy Bar. So this isn't a chocolate. There's plenty of chocolate, but this calendar is better suited for candy lovers. Marshmallows, sour gummies, and candy sticks. I didn't know that Dylan's Candy Bar was still around. That's no longer for sale because it's after the year. They launched. Dylan, by the way, is Dylan Lauren, the daughter of Ralph Lauren. The first location for Dylan's Candy Bar was in New York City on the Upper East Side. Best Belgian milk chocolate advent calendar, Jacques Therese. So, okay. So people may know who Jacques is. He's one of the biggest names in chocolate in the US as an individual, in terms of character. And he's using chocolate made in Belgium, right? But I believe it's from the company Belcolade, which is owned by Puratos. So it's a big industrial chocolate maker. So I think what's going on here, it looks like they may be solid chocolate, right? Behind the doors are solid Belgian milk chocolates with one of 6 cheery designs. So it's the same chocolate in different shapes, but they consider it to be Belcolade the best Belgian milk chocolate advent calendar, which is interesting. The best chocolate praline, Laderac. Again, really interesting. This is a Swiss company, but when it comes to pralines, praline, it's an interesting question about are these, how are you using the word praline, and how is this different from what it is that Hotel Chocolat is doing? or Vosges or some of the or Compartes who are doing similar kinds of products in this format. And so, I'm confused about the way that this got done. I like the fact that people are doing a lot of um, chocolate themed advent calendars. But what I find here is that the, mostly large companies, mostly companies with big marketing budgets. Many of these companies have been mentioned before in other articles. We don't know how many food and wine editors were consulted in producing this. There are just lots of unknowns about how we got to this best list. And again, I'm confused at the number 21 instead of 24 or 25, which is why didn't we go there? Because that's how many days there are in an Advent calendar. But what I wanted to do next, and for me, is like I went and searched what are some other lists of Advent calendars, and I ran across the list at the Chocolate Professor. So the Chocolate Professor, I believe, was founded by Adam Levy. He's got a couple of other like Beer Professor and Spirits Professor websites. Let's go to the bottom. I don't want to. Let me see if I can get rid of the overlay here. I am not really familiar with Deborah Levtov and her background. She has written for a whole lot of publications: New York Times, Saveur, Eater, Tasting Table, Food and Wine, Condé Nast Traveler, Vogue, Zagat. I don't know what her background on chocolate is, which is what I'd like to know. What I'd really like is somebody who is more than just a food writer, but somebody with vast experience in chocolate. But what we have here is the Chocolate Professor. Its audience is people who like chocolate. Its audience is people who know chocolate. Its audience is people who love chocolate. And so the recommendations of best Advent calendars, right, should represent the best chocolate that can be purchased in the United States. Last year, they did 12 of the best Advent calendars, but this year they have 12 best. Is it the 12 best? Is it 12 of the best? Semantics, we'll go figure it out. So number one, Compartes. So this one was also on the list from Food and Wine. And there's actually no review of the chocolate itself. It's just a description of what's inside, right, of what's going on. So not sure if the author tasted this one, if there was any review in that respect. A company called Chocolat the Cat, which is Canadian. And one of the nice things is that there are links, right? And I believe the links all still work, except when they've taken them off the website because they're no longer there. So this is 67 Canadian. I'm not familiar with them. So Cata Ambris, there's a new design and artwork. Flavors are mostly unique to the calendar. Okay. So Venchi, and the Italian maker, best known for some giandujas. This is unique to this calendar. It's articulated. It opens up in interesting ways, which is cool. But we have a relatively small chocolatier in Los Angeles. We have a Canadian chocolatier. We have an Italian chocolate maker and confectioner, 31. All right. And so these are 31 individually wrapped chocolates. I don't know. So one is made of wood that's carved out of a house shape with 29. So there's a history in there. They have 3 different versions at 3 different price points, including one made from wood that is reusable. That'd be cool. So buy one year and you stuff it with things in different years. But why do I have a 24-day calendar that's got 31 individually wrapped pieces or 20? So Venchi is, again, an industrial maker. They're well known for gianduja and things containing hazelnuts. They are by no means the best gianduja which is available in Italy, but they're a solid source. And they're not necessarily everywhere, right? So they're not mass market. So dandelion, so this is the same piece that was also, so we have an overlap of Compartes and dandelion when it comes to these things. Again, right? There's no description, there's no review of the chocolate themselves. It's just a description of what the pieces are in the box. Hilliard's is interesting. So Hilliard's, if it's the company that I think of, is that Hilliard's makes equipment. And this Hilliard's must, I think of it that way. So Hilliard's chocolates visit our in Newton, Massachusetts. So again, I would think of this as a hometown favorite. Um, Calendar's no longer available. I don't know whose chocolate that they're using. There are 24 pieces of milk chocolate from the historic Massachusetts owned and operated chocolatier. So maybe they're wrapped differently, but it's the same chocolate. Not entirely sure. Don't understand why it's one of the best in the country, but it's different. So Delicia chocolate, very, very straightforward. You don't have to hunt around. Looks like there might be a lagniappe with a 25th piece. Very, very straightforward presentation. So, and apparently every year there's a different creative theme, although the plainly numbered chocolates appear simple from the outside. Home for the holidays. So interesting. Small chocolate maker, chocolatier, not a big company. So Hotel Chocolat, this is the everything collection again. Mirzam, I mean, if there's any one on the list that I would purchase, Mirzam. I know Kathy Johnson, who founded this. Their their fennel bar is one of my favorite bars of all time. Mini squares. So these are bunches of single origin, all done. Again, the dandelion is a curated selection. It's not certain, again, who actually contributed to the selection. And who made the chocolate that goes into them. I'm going to assume that it was Dandelion who made the chocolate. But Mirzam, I mean, this is a beautiful take on the kind of tile work which is available in the Middle East, and the flavors. Again, I mean, I'm a big fan of the work that Kathy has done. And as I say, the fennel bar is one of my favorite bars ever. Cocoa Chocolatier, not familiar with it. Their advent calendar designed by a London-based artist. 24-minute bars, including a Colombian milk and a Colombian dark. So unfamiliar with it, but they do look like they're good-sized bars. And so this could be an interesting exploration of this particular chocolate. And the bars may be large enough for sharing. The La Maison du Chocolat. So, right. So one of the things interesting, this year's limited edition Triomphe Advent Calendar was inspired by the Place d'Etoile and its 12 avenues. Right? So it looks to be a very different presentation than the one that was on the food and wine list. So also interesting, cocoa and cardamom, probably the same piece that was in the food and wine list. Neuhaus, same one that's on the food and wine list. So what I would say is if you're interested in, right, an advent calendar which provides the best eating experiences, the most interesting chocolate experience, what I would say is go and do what I recommend. So, if you're interested in getting a specialty wine, you go to a specialty wine store. You don't go to the local grocery store. Although sometimes grocery stores do have some interesting wines. If you want a special wine, go to a specialty wine store. Similar kind of thing for chocolate. If you're interested in interesting chocolate, go to a small specialty chocolate maker, confectioner, or store and get what they've got. Going to the big guys, supporting big chocolate, industrial chocolate, where you don't know where the chocolate is made, you don't know who makes the chocolate, you don't know what cocoa beans were used to make the chocolate. You're probably having things that are manufactured in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, as opposed to hundreds, right? Or maybe even bigger, millions of pieces, so they can be distributed globally. Your chances of getting really good chocolate are not all that high. So if you want an experience to savor that you can share with friends and colleagues and are looking for not just a beautiful box, but a presentation was filled with amazing confections that are just going to delight the tongue every single day. Right? For me, there's nothing more boring than opening up an advent calendar and finding the same thing, even if it's in a different shape. Finding the same thing behind each drawer. What's the fun of that? Opening up something and finding something which is opening up the door and finding something which is different from what I had yesterday and will be different from what I had tomorrow. And I'll put it into my mouth and it'll put a smile on my face, or it's something I can share with someone else and we can have the experience together. So that's how I would recommend looking at advent calendars, right? It's ultimately a journey, and it's ultimately a method of, it's a way of sharing some experience with people, right? And focus on those aspects of things and take a look at the chocolate that also aligns with other values that you have. Is it sustainably sourced? Whatever sustainably means. Is it ethically sourced? What that means. And go and, when you possibly can, buy from a local supplier that you can look in the eye and say, hey, what's going on, right? And that is producing something nearby using local ingredients and using labor in the local community, right? At this day and age, buying something which is manufactured in a foreign country using chocolate you don't know anything about, right? Right. Is not a way to share the spirit of the season. Let's put it that way. Right. And I think that's a really important thing to know. But let me know what you think. You can go into the comments. You can go to this post on the Chocolate Life. Let's you can go to, what we got here? You can go to this post on the Chocolate Life. Hey, I want to make sure this post on the Chocolate Life. If you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can go down to the bottom. You can throw some comments into the discussion. I'm not logged in, so I'd have to log in or sign up, which says that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. To become a member, you can click on the join button up there. Always a free membership tier, but you can also become a premium membership on a monthly basis or an annual basis for as little as $5 a month. And if you do sign up for a higher tier levels, they come with coaching and consulting hours that you can use at any point over the course of the year. This is the homepage of the Chocolate Life right now, and you can gain access to all of the posts that are here, except the ones that are limited to members. If you are not a member of the Chocolate Life, what you'll do is you'll see a little bit of content, and then what you'll do is you'll see all of this content is for subscribers, and you can join and see. Now, couple of bits of housekeeping. Number one is the all-member AMA call is opened up to anyone on the internet who wants to join. It's this coming Sunday, the 21st, starting at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. The room will be open, as it always is, for 90 minutes. If you got a question about cocoa and chocolate, you can come and join me in the room and ask me anything you want to know about cocoa or chocolate. That's this coming Sunday, the 21st, starting at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can click on this link. It's Google Meet. I don't record them. I don't transcribe them. So I'm just there. Come in at any time and we can answer the question. You may be the only person in the room. It happens sometimes. The room may be filled with a bunch of other people. I also want to point out that this coming Friday, right, if you go to the post for today, what you'll do is you'll see the roster of upcoming posts. So this coming Friday, December the 19th, I'm going to be speaking with Jake Potter, who is the founder of the Red Rock Chocolate and Fine Food Festival in Utah. We're going to be talking about that festival, which is the end of January so it's the last weekend in January into February next year. I don't know what I'm going to be doing a week from today, but on the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, for people in the UK and the Commonwealth, I'm going to be taking a look back at 2025. And then the next Tuesday, I'm going to be taking a look at the year ahead. Still don't know what's going to be the topic for the first day of 2026, but that's what's scheduled for the future of the Chocolate Life moving forward. And with that, I want to say thanks to everybody who's joined me today. And I will be back this coming Friday with Jake Potter talking about the Red Rock Chocolate and Fine Food Festival. But until then, everybody, remember, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, I think you're doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, ciao.